So the regulators have a pretty full agenda for 2025. There's really a number of topics that are under scrutiny. I think the first that all the regulators are talking about is CBDCs, central bank digital currencies and crypto. It's very high up on regulators' agenda. I think the second is AI, and AI itself being regulated, and particularly if you look at the AI European Directive and derivatives that are happening in the UK and elsewhere is a concern for the banks and very much a concern for the regulators. So that's very much a hot topic. Then third is resiliency. So if you look at DORA and all of the derivatives, that's very much a concern. So IT resiliency and indeed now AI resiliency is a concern for regulators. And then lastly, the whole concept of a duty of care to customers, particularly retail customers, again is something that's only in its infancy in terms of where regulators are going with that. So if you look at a typical tier one bank, it has to absorb about 30 million pages of legal text every year. A smaller firm is still in the millions. So the reality is with that type of volume of change and of legal and regulatory text that has to be absorbed, all of the firms have to get with the tech. So rather than it being a barrier, the tech is really there to solve the administrative problems. But actually the problem is slightly different. It's where to start. And I think where most firms are starting is to actually be aware of all the reg changes and actually to try and keep abreast of all of the developments. Well, if you look at supervisory bodies, I'd look at it this way. If you look at institutions or supervisory bodies like the FCA, MAS and FINRA in particular, they're really leading the charge in terms of innovation, in terms of RegTech. So a lot of the supervisory bodies, unlimited budgets, are actually achieving some really fabulous stuff, and actually they're pushing all of the other actors to get with the technology. Well, I think if you look at RegTech, it should actually do the opposite. We're now got to a stage where there's such a volume of change, it cannot be done by teams of humans, or teams of staff, or teams even of consultants. So, if you look at, say, 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of firms regularly brought in large law firms or the top four to assist with something, and this isn't a sustainable solution. So the only sustainable solution is really to invest in tech, and I think really the first place to go is to automate a large volume of things that are low risk. In other words, there are items that are quite perfunctory, and if they're automated first, it's a very good first step. Well, I've been going to events like this for over 10 years. I think if you look at this industry, there is fantastic collaboration with all vendors. And I think this particular event, I think, is unique. There's a lot of people coming. And if you look at that whole exchange of ideas, it just doesn't happen online. There's something great happens at an event like this. I always go away with some fantastic ideas, and also to realize just the state of innovation that's in the industry right now.